Resident Evil holds a special place in my heart. I still remember being 11 years old in 1996 when I first encountered the game at Hastings, our local video rental store. Hastings was my go-to spot back then, and they had only one copy of the game for the original PlayStation. That single disc became a source of constant competition between me and my friend Chase, who lived just up the street. Oddly enough, Chase's dad, Charlie, was more into the game than Chase ever was. He would often challenge me to see how far I could progress in the story, adding a little extra rivalry to the mix. Back then, I wasn't very good at the game. The tank controls were unlike anything I'd experienced before. Pressing up on the directional pad moved your character forward, while left or right adjusted the angle of movement, like driving a tank. It was clunky, and for someone used to simpler games on the SNES, it felt alien.
What the hell?
When we first dove into this survival horror concept, I was immediately hooked. The atmosphere was gripping, and even now, nearly 28 years later, I can still recall that feeling of being pulled into Resident Evil's eerie world. We started our adventure as Chris Redfield, not realizing that Chris's campaign was essentially the hard mode. He had fewer item slots, no assistance from Barry, and started with only a knife, unlike Jill Valentine, who came equipped with a Beretta 9mm. Even the grenade launcher, oddly referred to as a bazooka in the game, was out of reach for Chris. But we were kids. We didn't think that far ahead. We just picked a character and went for it. Then came the iconic live-action intro, cheesy, over-the-top, and still awesome to this day. Who doesn't love some solid B-movie horror? From Jill's hilarious mispronunciation of Joseph, to Chris's memorable "Wait, don't go" line.
No! Don't go!
The intro set the tone perfectly. The low-resolution character introductions, complete with blood-type stats that meant absolutely nothing, and Wesker's cool shades were just the icing on the cake. When the mansion doors creaked open for the first time, we found ourselves in a seemingly ordinary yet deeply unsettling space. It wasn't overtly creepy, but the emptiness and eerie silence created a tension that lingered throughout. The awkward dialogue that followed, paired with some of the worst voice acting ever, gave the game a charm and personality that few titles could match. As Chris, we stumbled into the dining room, struggling to grasp the controls. "How does this work?" we asked, passing the controller around as we awkwardly adjusted to the fixed camera angles and tank-like movement. After some trial and error, we ventured down a hallway and came face to face with one of gaming's most iconic moments, the first zombie slowly turning to look at us. That scene cemented my lifelong love for Resident Evil. Our initial plan? Knife it to death. Spoiler alert, it didn't go well. We didn't yet understand that this game wasn't about killing everything in sight. Coming from the SNES era, we thought the goal was simple: kill all enemies. Resident Evil flipped that logic on its head. With just a knife and no grasp of the controls, we died. A lot. It became a challenge just to kill that first zombie, and after countless tries, I was the first to succeed. A victory I still remember fondly, even though in hindsight it wasn't much of a feat.
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right.
Unfortunately, we didn't make it far. We got lost in the mansion, trapped by our own ignorance and stubborn determination to fight everything. To make matters worse, Charlie began hogging the game, often extending its rental period and not letting me have my turn. My frustrations grew, and it wasn't until Christmas that I finally got my own copy. For a 90s kid in a working-class family, Christmas was the time for big gifts, and that year, Resident Evil was mine. I still have the original disc and instruction manual to this day. With my own copy, I finally gave Jill a shot and quickly fell in love with her character. She had extra inventory slots, better starting equipment, and of course, the iconic Master of Unlocking line.
Jill, here's a lockpick. It might be handy if you, the Master of Unlocking, take it with you.
That sentence alone solidified her place as my favorite character, not just in Resident Evil, but in gaming history. It took me days, maybe weeks, to escape the mansion. I vividly remember telling my parents how thrilled I was, even though they probably had no idea what I was talking about. From that point on, the game became a cornerstone of my gaming life. Looking back, what matters most isn't just the game itself, but the memories it created. Playing with my neighborhood friend and his dad, struggling to figure out this groundbreaking new type of game, and feeling a sense of accomplishment despite our early failures. Those are the moments that define Resident Evil for me. It's not just a game, it's a piece of my childhood.
Resident Evil.